Hey everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to The Division 2. In case you missed it, yesterday was a pretty big day for the game and community. Not only did we get the full reveal for the Battle for Brooklyn DLC, which is launching next month on May 27, but we also got our first reveal and details about Year 7 of The Division 2. Now, on the DLC side, I did a full breakdown on everything we learned, including my own experience playing it when I got to visit Massive Entertainment last week. I will link that video in the upper corner and down in the description. Highly recommend you check it out. However, as I said, there was a whole other half of yesterday's reveal, and that was the developers' plans for Year 7 of the game, right? Battle for Brooklyn and Year 7 Season 1 begins on May 27th, but there's more updates, seasons, and more to come throughout the year. What will they contain? That is what I want to cover in this video. Now, to clarify now, we did not get a definitive roadmap for Year 7. It sounds like they plan on giving us more information during each Year 7 season about what is coming up. However, they do provide some explanations of the plans they have on how they want to change the game. Some of them sound quite interesting, so we'll get right to it. And if you don't want to miss anything on The Division 2, again, Year 7 begins in just a few weeks, then be sure to click that subscribe button if you've not already. I got a lot coming your way. But without further ado, let's go. Alright, so we're going to cut back and forth a little bit between the official showcase, what the devs said with their own words, as well as my own thoughts and analysis to that. They start out by highlighting 3 main goals for the year. So let's take a look at that.
With only a few weeks remaining until the final climax mission of Year 6, let's take a sneak peek at what's in store for the upcoming Year 7.
Year 7 will focus on 3 main goals. With the constant influx of new players, improving and streamlining the onboarding process for new agents is more important than ever. We are also focused on adding more depth to the endgame, ensuring there is always something exciting to look forward to. Year 7 will solidify seasons as a cornerstone of the Division 2 experience. Our ambition is to increase the pace and situations, allowing for more regular updates and fresh experiences.
Okay, so this seems pretty straightforward. Firstly, they want to streamline onboarding. Now, I'm sure to many of you listening who are longtime players that may sound boring, but this is actually a pretty crucial component to long-term growth for a game like this. For instance, Destiny 2, which is a very similar game at least in terms of structure and genre. I don't play Destiny anymore, but I do often watch some content from it on YouTube just because I'm curious what the trajectory of that game has been over time. And in those videos, I see the community highlighting a deep desire for the developers to focus on reworking the onboarding of the game, as currently it is so undercooked and undone that it leaves newer players completely confused on how to progress in the game, and that means that the actual retention rate for those newer players is very low. So to see the Division 2 devs committing to improving that is definitely a good sign. The thing I am curious about is that many of the recent updates we've had, including Project Resolve, 1 Endgame Seasons 2.0, they already did a lot to make it easier for new players to jump in, so I'm curious what else they might plan to do beyond what we've already seen in those updates. But yeah, that's one of the big pillars for this year. They then talk about more endgame depth. Now this is what I care the most about, right? What replayable and fresh experiences are there to do at the highest level of content? They do elaborate a bit more on some of their specific plans for this in a moment, so let's put a pin in this one. And then finally, we hear Yana commit to solidifying seasons as a cornerstone of the Division 2 experience, including apparently more regular updates and fresh experiences overall. I'm definitely quite curious about this. We know that seasons have been a backbone for many of these updates that the game has gotten since it returned to content in Season 9. And so, theoretically, if they can put these things out more regularly, you know, back in the day we used to have 3-month seasons. Now they'll go on for 4, sometimes 4.5 months. So if they make them faster and they increase the variety of what they offer, that could be big, but honestly we have too few details right now to really sink into, so we'll wait to hear more on that. They do clarify, however, that seasons are not solely what they're focused on, so let's hear a few more of those specific plans.
Of course, seasons are not the only thing you can expect. During Year 7, we want to make the open world a more dynamic part of the endgame. For example, we're working on introducing an entirely new wrapper to open world activities that react to your actions while unlocking exotic blueprints farming to help you complete your arsenal.
Okay, now I'll be honest, out of everything that we're going to take a look at in this video, this is what piques my interest the most. I have always contested, this is why I emphasize it in a lot of my Division 3 discussion videos, the open worlds in the Division games are the biggest asset that the developers have for replayability and content variety, right? The map and the play spaces are already there. use them. The Division 2 tried to make things more dynamic with their open world approach compared to the Division 1, and that was certainly appreciated, but ultimately, and 5 years later as we're still playing the game, you end up learning all there is to do, right? And so, in Yannick's words, they want to make the open world a more dynamic part of the endgame, adding an entirely new wrapper for open world activities that reacts to your actions. Sign me the hell up. Now, of course, we're going to have to wait to hear further details on what exactly that means, but from the idea of that alone, this is the exact kind of experimentation and the variety of features that I want to see them exploring in a game that is now over 6 years old. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what they're talking about here. They do mention that whatever system this is going to be tied to unlocking exotic blueprints, I believe just for existing items that are already in the game. So that doesn't matter greatly to me, but I'm sure the newer players are going to appreciate that. Alright, they then talk about a few more specific plans. Let's take a look.
We're also focusing on the economy. More specifically, we have a package of revamps that will add more depth to the endgame progression, giving you more control over tinkering and item customization.
Alright, so not a ton that I want to add to this. Package of revamps, as they call it, isn't a lot to go off of, but they do say they want to look at the overall economy. Sure, I would say that's always a good thing to keep in check. They want to add more depth to endgame progression. Again, I like the sound of that, but as of now, it's not a lot to go off of. But he does describe giving you more control over tinkering and item customization. This is probably what sounds most compelling to me. Greater and deeper levels of build customization always engages me. I won't speak for anyone else, but I like that stuff. So really, more than anything, I'm just curious to see what we learn here. They then go on to detail their plans for seasons a little bit more.
We aim to make Year 7 seasons a truly holistic experience by realigning the modifiers, gear and gameplay with the narrative elements of the seasons, including the manhunt and climax.
Alright, so not a ton of notes here. It sounds like they want to align the gear, modifier, story, basically everything that a season delivers in one cohesive theme. They've attempted this before. I mean, think back to even Season 3. Back in the day was all about close quarter combat. Season 9 had a very heavy pulse theme. I want to say they even stated that this was a goal of Seasons 2.0 to really bring everything together, including the modifiers a bit more. So I'm interested to see what different approaches they might have to try and make that happen. But especially if seasons are going to be happening more frequently, as they teased earlier, that's really all I need to hear. Alright, and then finally, they just state a few sporadic goals for the year. Here they are.
In Year 7, you can look forward to a variety of in-game events, including XP multipliers as well as seasonal projects.
Additionally, exciting new features such as weapon stats and resource boost will be introduced.
Year 6 introduced one of the most anticipated quality of life updates, the stash space increase.
In Year 7, we'll continue expanding stash space along with the Battle for Brooklyn DLC.
Again, not a whole lot to say. More events coming. That's not a huge surprise. I'm not exactly sure what they mean when they say exciting new features like weapon stats and resource boosts mean. I've seen some people be concerned that that suggests that those things are going to be available in the store. I would certainly hope not, but we'll keep an eye on whatever that may end up being. But then at the end, they do commit to adding more stash space beyond, apparently, what Battle for Brooklyn is offering, which is 50 additional slots if you do end up purchasing the DLC. So that's really big. I think people are going to be very happy to hear that. We already got 100 new slots as of this last season. The stash is getting bigger. Hallelujah.
We'll be sharing more updates over the course of the year, so you can look forward to more news and announcements each season.
Alright, so as you heard Yannick say there, their plan is to give us more updates and a wider look at what they're really thinking about as we progress throughout Year 7. This is definitely a bit of a different approach than the one definitive roadmap that we usually get at the beginning of the year. Maybe they're doing that to try and help with people's expectations so that people aren't reading into one thing a ton and then it gets canceled or things change. Updated player expression. So yeah, we'll await further details. Out of everything, like I said, I'm certainly most intrigued to hear what their plans are for the open world, how it might react to your own actions. That sounds really sick. But we'll see. My friends, that is just about everything I have to break down for this Year 7 reveal. We're getting another year of the Division 2. It is certainly a bit less defined and mapped out compared to what we're accustomed to, but I suppose that just means more reveals and information to be learned along the way. I'm certainly curious to see what we find out, and additionally to know what you all are thinking about this. What are your reactions to their pitch for Year 7? How do you interpret some of the different comments? What do you think we're going to see in the open world, seasons, these revamps, and more? Also, is there anything that they didn't mention in the showcase that you think really should be a priority going into Year 7 of the Division 2? Let me know all of it down below. That is all I've got for you today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.